Listen, too many of us waste time trying to prove ourselves to people who already decided not to value us. We break down our dreams like mad problems, explaining every detail, hoping they'll finally get it. But truth is, if someone can't see your value without a PowerPoint presentation, they never truly saw you to begin with. Your worth don't live in their approval. It lives in your grind, in your vision, and how you move when nobody's watching. Stop begging people to understand you. Stop defending your shine. Instead, let your actions speak. Let them feel the silence when you're gone. Let's break it down. When was the last time you saw a diamond stop shining just because somebody questioned its worth? You ain't never seen that. A diamond don't talk, it don't debate, it don't argue, it just shines. The price is the price. If you understand, you buy. If you don't, you walk away. That's how value works. It don't chase nobody. It don't beg for validation. It just is. And that's the same way you got to see yourself. Stop running around trying to explain why you matter, why your vision is real, why your effort deserves respect. If somebody can't recognize the energy you bring, that's not your job to fix. It's theirs to lose. Too many of us get caught in the trap of proving ourselves. We sit across from people, breaking our lives down like equations, trying to make them see what we see. We defend our dreams like we're on trial, like we got to convince a jury to let us live. But understand this, the people who are truly aligned with your journey, they won't need a presentation. They'll feel it in the way you move. They'll see it in your consistency. They'll recognize it in the small details, the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, the discipline. Real value don't scream, it whispers. It's visible to those who know what to look for. Think about the story of Steve Jobs. Apple's, his own company, the one he built from scratch, fired him. They looked at him like he was replaceable, like his vision was too much, too far ahead. They thought they could keep the machine running without the man who built it. And he didn't waste time arguing. He didn't sit outside the boardroom begging them to understand his ideas. He let the results speak. He went out, built new companies, sharpened his craft, doubled down on his vision. Years later, those same people who pushed him out had to call him back because the results were undeniable. He didn't explain, he displayed. And through that display, he built Apple into one of the most valuable companies in the world. That's proof right there. Your work, your consistency, your faith in your own path is the loudest voice you'll ever have. I've seen this play out in real life too, not just in boardrooms and billion-dollar companies. Maybe you grew up with family who never believe in your ideas. You tell them you want to start a business and they laugh, tell you to stick to a real job. You tell them you want to pursue music and they say it's impossible. You tell them you're going to change your lifestyle and they roll their eyes. Now, if you sit there arguing, trying to convince them to see what you see, all you're doing is wasting energy. But if you take that same energy and put it into the work, one day they'll see the results. They'll see you living in that house they thought you couldn't afford, driving that car they thought was out of reach, standing on a stage they swore you'd never get to. And that's when regret sets in. Not because you explained, but because you didn't have to. Value is not in your words, it's in your actions. It's how you show up when no one is watching. It's how you keep promises to yourself. It's how you choose discipline over excuses. You don't got to tell people you're real. Real recognizes real. You don't got to convince people you're working. The results reveal themselves in time. Think about fitness. You don't walk around explaining your workout routine to strangers. You just show up day after day, put in the reps, and eventually your body transforms. People see the results without you ever saying a word. That's how life works. Transformation is proof. Discipline is proof. Consistency is proof. And here's the thing, sometimes people won't recognize your value because they're not even capable of seeing it. Their vision is too small, their mindset too limited. They trapped in survival mode. So when they look at you, dreaming big, pushing boundaries, thinking long term, they can't process it. That's why explaining is pointless. You're trying to feed steak to someone who only knows fast food. They won't appreciate the flavor. That don't mean the steak ain't valuable. It just means the audience ain't ready. That's why you got to trust the process. The people who are meant for you will see you clearly. They won't ask you to justify yourself. They won't demand you prove anything. They'll recognize your worth without explanation. And the people who don't, let them doubt, let them underestimate, let them talk behind your back, because every hour you spend proving yourself to them is an hour you could have been stacking results, building foundations, planting seeds that will grow into undeniable proof. History is full of examples like this. Think about J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter. She was rejected by multiple publishers who didn't see the value in her work. She didn't stop writing letters begging them to understand her worth as an author. She kept writing. She kept believing, and eventually her books went on to sell over 500 million copies worldwide. Now, those same publishers who said no probably keep her books on their shelves today. That's what I mean. Value displayed, not explained. It's the same with us on the ground level. You might be grinding on your small business, making a few sales a week, and your friends clown you for wasting time. But when that same business starts pulling in six figures, when you hire staff, when you scale up, those same people will say, man, I always knew you'd make it. And you'll smile because you remember how they doubted. But you didn't waste your breath explaining. You let the results make the statement. So understand this, your value doesn't decrease just because someone doesn't see it. A diamond in the dirt is still a diamond. Gold under the ground is still gold. Whether the world sees it or not, it's still precious. Same with you. Your job is to stay consistent, to keep working, to keep building, to keep shining, regardless of who's watching. Because the day will come when they can't ignore it anymore. The day will come when your results scream louder than your words ever could. And that's when the regret sets in. Not on you, but on them. Every minute you spend explaining yourself is a minute stolen from your own progress. Time is the most expensive currency you ever hold, and once it's gone, you can't get a refund. Too many people burn that currency on conversations that lead nowhere. Trying to convince doubters, trying to flip non-believers into believers, trying to explain the car they're driving to people who never even learned how to steer. Think about that for a second. You're on a mission, moving forward, chasing a vision, and you stop to debate with someone standing on the sidewalk going nowhere. Every second you give them is gas you could have put into your own engine. We've all been there. You tell a friend about your idea and they hit you with a look like you crazy. You share your goals with family and they laugh or dismiss it. You let your partner in on your dreams. Instead of support, they give you doubt, fear, negativity. You walk away from those conversations feeling drained, second guessing yourself, questioning whether you got what it takes. That's the trap. That's how energy gets wasted. And the crazy thing is, the dream didn't get smaller. You just let someone shrink your vision with their lack of belief. That's why you got to protect your energy like it's your last breath, because in a way, it is. Energy is life. And every ounce you pour into the wrong places takes away from what could be growing in the right ones. Here's the truth. You can't teach somebody to value what they don't respect. You can't convince someone who's determined not to see your worth. It's like trying to explain color to someone who refuses to open their eyes. No matter how vivid your words, they won't get it. And the more you try, the more frustrated you get, because deep down you're hoping that if you explain it just right, they'll finally understand. But 9 times out of 10, they won't. Not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready, or maybe they never will be. That's why protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. Think about an entrepreneur trying to get funding for an idea. They might pitch to 20 investors and 19 of them say no. They don't waste time going back to those 19, explain it over and over again. They take that no and move forward until they find the one yes that matters. Same thing in life. You don't need everybody to get it. You don't need the whole world to clap for you. You just need to stay focused long enough for the right opportunities, the right people, the right timing to align. And none of that can happen if you're pouring all your strength into proving yourself to the wrong crowd. Let me tell you a story. There was a guy I knew growing up, real talented with his hands, could build anything out of wood. He used to say he wanted to start his own furniture business. Every time he brought it up around his family, they clowned him. Nobody's buying homemade furniture. That's just a hobby, not a career. And I'd watch him shrink a little every time, trying to defend himself, trying to argue, trying to make them see it. For years, he went back and forth, stuck in the cycle of convincing instead of creating. Then one day he finally said, forget it. He stopped trying to explain. He started spending those hours in his garage building. He started small, 1 chair, 1 table, selling them online. Fast forward 5 years, he had his own store, employees, and more orders than he could fill. And guess who came around saying, I always knew you could do it. The same family that drained him before. The difference was, once he stopped spending his energy on them, he had enough left to invest in himself. That's the lesson. Energy is finite. If you burn it on doubters, you won't have it for building. If you waste it on explanations, you won't have it for execution. Protect your energy like money in the bank. Would you hand out $100 bills to people who don't respect you? No. So why hand out your energy, which is worth even more? But we live in a world where everyone got an opinion, and most of those opinions don't come from experience, they come from fear. People project their limits onto you. If they don't believe they can do something, they'll tell you it can't be done. And if you're not careful, you'll absorb that fear, carry it like it's yours. That's why boundaries matter. Sometimes love from a distance is the only way to keep your energy intact. It don't mean you hate them. It don't mean you think you better. It just means you value yourself enough not to let their doubt become your destiny. Look at history. Every great innovator, every leader, every artist faced doubt. Imagine if the Wright brothers had listened when people said humans weren't meant to fly. Imagine if Oprah had stopped when she was told she wasn't fit for television. Imagine if Michael Jordan had quit when his high school coach cut him from the team. All of them had doubters. All of them had people telling them to sit down, be realistic, stop dreaming. And if they had spent their energy explaining why they believed, they never would have had enough left to prove it through results. I'll put it like this. Lions don't waste time explaining to sheep why they hunt. They just hunt. They let the results show who they are. And that's exactly how you got to move. When you know who you are, when you know what you're building, when you know the value of your vision, your job is to guard your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Without energy, nothing moves. Without energy, even the best plan dies. So stop letting doubters drain you. Stop letting them rent space in your head for free. Stop trying to make them see your work. They'll see it when the results come, and by then, it's too late for them to benefit from it. Your focus should be on progress, not persuasion, on execution, not explanation, because at the end of the day, the loudest thing you can ever say is the life you live. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. Not a speech, not an argument, not a long explanation about why you deserve better. Sometimes the loudest statement you'll ever make is your absence. Silence is heavy. When you pull back your presence, your energy, your consistency, your love, people start to feel the weight of what they lost. They notice the void, the gap, the emptiness. And that sting of regret cuts deeper than any words you could have said when you were still there. We've all been in situations where we tried too hard to prove ourselves. In relationships and friendships, even at jobs. You bend over backwards to show loyalty, to fix problems, to hold things together. You answer every call. You show up every time. You sacrifice sleep, money, peace of mind. You think that if you just keep giving, people will recognize the value you bring. But too often, what happens? They get used to it. They take it for granted. They start expecting it like it's just part of the package. Your effort stops looking like effort and starts looking like obligation. That's the danger of over-explaining your worth. You end up trapped in a cycle of over-giving and under-appreciation. But the moment you step back, everything shifts. When you stop answering that phone at 2 a.m, suddenly the silence screams. When you stop bailing them out of every bad decision, suddenly the consequences hit harder. When you stop being the glue holding everything together, the cracks become too obvious to ignore. That's when people realize your presence wasn't automatic. It was a blessing, and it's only in the absence that they start to feel the truth. Think about it like this. Oxygen is invisible. You don't really notice it when it's around. You don't thank it. You don't even think about it. But the moment it's gone, the moment you can't breathe, you realize it's the most valuable thing in your life. That's how your presence works. People might overlook it when it's constant, but the second you remove it, they can't help but feel the difference. Absence makes your value undeniable. I know people who stayed in toxic relationships way too long, pouring love into someone who didn't return it, explaining over and over again why they deserved respect. They thought if they just said it the right way, if they just proved themselves one more time, things would change. But nothing shifted, because words don't change hearts, actions do. And the action that speaks the loudest is walking away. When they finally left, when they stopped showing up, that's when the other person realized what they lost. But by then the door was closed. That's the power of absence. It don't just teach the other person, it heals you. It reminds you that your energy is too precious to be wasted where it's not valued. Even in business, this lesson applies. Think about a workplace where you're always over-delivering. You stay late, you cover for others, you make the team look good. At first, they appreciate it, but over time, it becomes expected. The promotions don't come, the recognition fades, and suddenly you're carrying the load for free. You can explain all day about how much you contribute, but nothing changes until you step back. You stop volunteering for everything. You set boundaries. You refuse to be taken advantage of. Suddenly projects start falling apart without you. Deadlines get missed. And the same people who overlooked you are forced to acknowledge the hole you leave behind. That absence spoke louder than years of explanations ever could. Silence has a way of forcing reflection. When you stop talking, stop justifying, stop showing up on demand, people have no choice but to sit with themselves. And that's uncomfortable, because in that silence, they have to confront the reality. They had something real, something rare, and they didn't value it. That's when regret creeps in. And regret is a heavy burden. It lingers. It replays moments in their mind like a broken record. They remember the times you showed up, the things you did, the sacrifices you made. And now with you gone, they realize what they lost wasn't just a person, it was a presence, an energy that can't be replaced. The beauty of letting absence speak is that it requires no anger, no drama, no shouting matches. You don't have to burn bridges or explain your reasons over and over. You simply remove yourself and the truth reveals itself in time. And that's strength, that's power, because it takes discipline to walk away without closure, to leave without needing to be understood. But that discipline protects your peace. There's an old saying, sometimes you don't know what you've got until it's gone. It's cliche, but it's real. People often realize too late how much someone meant to them. And while that might hurt in the moment, it also confirms your value, because if your absence didn't matter, there'd be no regret. The fact that it stings proves you were carrying more weight than they admitted. I've seen friends who left certain circles because they were tired of being underappreciated. At first, the group didn't care. They thought, oh, they'll be back. But when that friend stopped showing up, stopped bringing their energy, their ideas, their vibe, suddenly the group wasn't the same. The laughs weren't as loud, the nights weren't as fun, the progress wasn't as steady. That one person's absence changed the whole dynamic. And all of a sudden, the ones who used to downplay them were the same ones saying, it's just not the same without you. But by then, the person who walked away had already elevated to something greater. The truth is, absence teaches lessons words never could. Words can be debated, dismissed, ignored, but absence is undeniable. You can't argue with silence. You can't spin it. You can't escape it. You have to feel it. And that feeling cuts deep. That's why when people lose access to your love, your consistency, your loyalty, they start to reflect in ways they never did when you were explaining it to them. So don't be afraid to pull back. Don't be afraid to let people sit with the consequences of not valuing you. Don't be afraid to let silence say what your words couldn't, because absence has a power that explanation will never match. And when that regret hits, when they finally understand what they lost, you won't even have to say, I told you so. The emptiness they feel will say it for you. When you explain your worth, what you're really saying is, measure me with your ruler, judge me by your standards, approve of me so I can believe in myself. The danger in that is simple. What if their ruler's broken? What if the tool they're using to measure your greatness is too small to even calculate the size of your vision? You end up shrinking yourself to fit inside their box, lowering your goals to meet their comfort zone, trading your destiny for their approval. That's the trap. That's what happens when you let proving yourself become the priority instead of building yourself. See, people can only see as far as their own perspective allows. Some people grew up in scarcity, so they can't imagine abundance. Some people live their whole lives playing it safe, so they can't process risk. Some people never left their hometown, so they can't picture the world beyond it. And when you hand them the power to measure you, you're letting their limits define your potential. You're trying to live your life by a ruler that was never made for you. Look at history. If Elon Musk listened when they said electric cars were a joke, Tesla would never exist. If you let critics define his lane, we wouldn't be talking about reusable rockets or a company that changed the entire auto industry. He didn't sit on TV shows debating whether he was crazy. He kept building, kept moving, kept letting the results speak. That's what happens when you stop proving and start doing. You become undeniable. Same with Beyonce. If she spent her career trying to explain to every critic why she was great, she'd still be arguing. Instead, she focused on the craft, the discipline, the work. She built a catalog so powerful that critics had to acknowledge her, even if they didn't want to. She didn't lower herself to their ruler. She made them upgrade theirs just to try to measure her. That's the difference between proving and becoming. In real life, the trap of proving yourself is everywhere. Think about relationships. You with someone who doesn't see your value, so you keep explaining, keep giving, keep bending over backwards, trying to convince them you're worthy. But the more you try, the less they respect it. Why? Because every time you prove yourself, you're subconsciously saying, your opinion of me is more important than my opinion of myself. You're handing over power, and when someone has power they didn't earn, they'll abuse it. That's why so many people stay stuck in cycles of disrespect, because they keep trying to earn validation from someone who was never qualified to give it in the first place. At work, the same thing happens. You're grinding harder than anyone, pulling long nights, fixing problems, covering for others, but instead of being valued, you're overlooked. And instead of pulling back and setting boundaries, you explain yourself. You point out everything you do, hoping they'll finally notice. But here's the truth. If someone has already decided to undervalue you, no amount of explanation will flip that switch. All you're doing is making yourself a prisoner of their standards. You're playing their game instead of building your own. Think about this. Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. Imagine if he spent the rest of his life trying to prove that coach wrong, explaining over and over that he was good enough. He would have wasted his greatness chasing one man's approval. But he didn't. He let the work speak. He built himself until he was undeniable, until even the people who doubted him had to respect him. That's the power of setting your own standards. You become so great that their ruler can't measure you anymore. The danger of proving yourself is it forces you to play small. You limit your potential to what they can understand. If their mind can only see to the corner, you shrink your dream to fit inside that corner. If their belief only stretches a mile, you stop running after the mile. That's how vision dies. Not because you didn't have it, but because you allow someone else's lack of vision to set the pace for your life. You have to ask yourself, whose ruler am I living by? If I'm chasing dreams that are really mine, or am I chasing approval from people who can't even see what I'm capable of? Am I living to prove, or am I living to build? Because the two don't mix. If you focus on proving, you're trapped. If you focus on building, you're free. Real growth happens when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to be undeniable. You don't need to explain why you're grinding, why you're sacrificing, and why you're chasing something bigger. You don't need to hand out a play-by-play to people who don't even have tickets to the game. Just keep building, just keep moving, because eventually the results speak louder than the doubts. The life you create will be the answer to every question they ever had. And the beautiful part is this: when you stop proving yourself, you unlock freedom. You're no longer chained to their opinions. You don't care if they clap or criticize, because you're not playing for them, you're playing for you. You're chasing your vision, your peace, your destiny. You're no longer begging to be measured. You're setting the standard. And when you set the standard, people either rise to meet it or they get left behind. The truth is, you can't build a skyscraper on a foundation made for a shack. And a lot of people in your life only have the capacity to hold shack-sized dreams. If you let them measure you, they'll tell you your skyscraper is too big, too much, impossible. But that's only because their foundation can't hold it. Don't lower your vision to fit their standards. Build your skyscraper anyway. Let them stand at the bottom, craning their necks, realizing they were never tall enough to see what you saw. Proving yourself is a trap. It keeps you locked in their world, limited by their ruler, stuck in their frame of mind. But setting your own standards, that's power, that's freedom. That's how you become undeniable. You don't explain your worth, you display it. You don't live for their applause, you live for your purpose. And once you step into that, it's not a ruler on earth big enough to measure the life you're destined to build. The goal was never to sit people down, explain your vision, argue your worth, and beg them to see what you already know deep inside. The real mission is to grow so much, build so much, and shine so bright that even in your absence, your presence is felt. You want to become unforgettable. Because when someone can't ignore you anymore, when the work you put in speaks louder than any explanation ever could, that's when the regret starts to eat at them. That's when they replay old conversations in their head, realizing they misjudged you, realizing they slept on something they should have cherished. See, clapping back at doubters is easy. You can throw words at them, argue on social media, waste energy, proving a point. But words fade, arguments dissolve. What people can't deny is consistency. What they can't ignore is discipline. When your actions add up to results that can't be overlooked, there's no debate left. Doubt gets silenced by evidence. That's why you don't respond with explanations, you respond with elevation. Imagine someone laughing at your business idea, telling you it'll never work. You can explain your business model to them for hours, show them charts, break down numbers, try to walk them through your vision, but chances are they'll still shrug it off. But if you stop talking and start building, one day they'll see your store open, your product selling, your brand being recognized, and in that moment, no explanation is needed. The proof is in the progress, and they'll feel that regret in their chest because they realize they underestimated something they should have believed in. Think about your body, your health, your growth. Maybe people doubted you when you said you were changing your lifestyle. They remembered the old you, the one who gave up easily, the one who didn't stick to routines. So they rolled their eyes when you said this time is different. You could argue, you could explain, but it's pointless. The only way they'll believe is when they see the results, when months pass and your body transforms, when your energy shifts, when your discipline shows up in the way you carry yourself. Then those same people who doubted will start asking, how'd you do it? That's when they realize they should have supported you instead of mocking you. That's when regret whispers. And it's not just about proving doubters wrong. It's about building something so undeniable that the right people can't resist aligning with you. When you focus on becoming unforgettable, you don't have to chase validation. It finds you. Your name starts living in rooms you've never entered. Opportunities start knocking because your consistency created waves too big to ignore. That's the level you should aim for. Not convincing, commanding. Not through force, but through presence. Through results. I've seen people pour years into trying to make their friends and family believe in them, and all it did was leave them drained. But when they shifted their energy inward into their grind, their craft, their vision, they became something nobody could overlook. Suddenly, the same people who doubted were reposting their wins, bragging about knowing them back when. That's the irony of regret. It makes people rewrite history. But the truth is, they didn't believe when it mattered. They only came around when the results were too loud to ignore. And that's okay, because the goal was never to convince them. The goal was to become unforgettable. And when you make yourself unforgettable, you don't just change how others see you, you change how you see yourself. You start to carry yourself different. You move with more confidence, more authority. You stop begging for a seat at the table because you realize tables can be built from scratch. And once you build your own, people who once overlooked you will be lining up asking for a seat. That's the power of focusing on growth instead of explanation. Think about the legends across every field, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs. They didn't become great by spending time proving themselves to doubters. They locked in on their craft until their names became unshakable. Muhammad Ali didn't explain why he was the greatest. He trained, fought, and became the greatest until no one could deny it. Serena Williams didn't argue with critics who underestimated her. She won so many championships that her legacy became permanent. The lesson is clear. When you're unforgettable, no explanation is needed. And it applies to everyday life too. Maybe you're a parent working 3 jobs and nobody respects the grind you put in. They might say you're never around. They might minimize your effort. But one day your kids will grow up and realize the sacrifices you made. They'll remember the food on the table, the light staying on, the clothes on their backs. In that absence of your constant explanations, your legacy becomes undeniable. You become unforgettable because your actions spoke louder than words ever could. It's the same with friendships. When you've been the one always holding people down, always showing up, always supporting, and they don't return that energy, you don't need to argue. Pull back. Let your absence be felt. When they see how the group feels without you, how the vibe shifts without your presence, they'll realize what they lost. And by the time they try to come back, regret will already be living in their chest. Unforgettable isn't about ego. It's about impact. It's about building a life so meaningful, so consistent, so disciplined, that even if you walked away, your energy would still echo in the spaces you left behind. That's the real goal. Not to clap back, not to argue, not to explain, but to elevate yourself so high that the memory of you can't be erased. And here's the truth. That kind of impact only comes from discipline. Anybody can talk about what they're going to do. Anybody can post quotes online, make announcements, and argue with doubters. But the ones who actually put in the work day after day, the ones who stay locked in when nobody's watching, those are the ones who become unforgettable. It's not the noise, it's the consistency. It's not the flash, it's the foundation. So when you catch yourself wanting to explain your work, stop and redirect that energy. Put it into your growth, put it into your craft, put it into your health, your business, your art, your family. Build so strong that when people look back, they can't help but regret not believing sooner. Because at the end of the day, the only revenge you ever need is becoming everything they said you couldn't be, and doing it so well that they can never forget you. You don't need revenge. You don't need to stage some big performance to show people they were wrong about you. You don't need to spend sleepless nights plotting ways to make them regret doubting you. Life already handles that part for you. Time has a way of humbling people in ways words never could. The same ones who overlooked you, the same ones who doubted, the same ones who brushed you off will circle back eventually with that tired line, "I always knew you'd make it." And when they do, you'll smile, not because they were right, but because you know deep down that your rise had nothing to do with them. You didn't succeed because of their support. You succeeded in spite of their absence. Regret is heavy, and it ain't yours to carry. It belongs to them. Let them live with the memories of when they could have backed you but chose to doubt. Let them replay the times they dismissed you, the moments they laughed, the conversations where they told you to be realistic, to play smaller, to stop dreaming. That regret will hit them harder than anything you could ever say. And you Your hands are too full for that weight anyway. You carrying progress, you carrying peace, you carrying purpose. See, revenge is tempting. We're human. We want to show the world I told you so. We want to flex on those who doubted us. But revenge ties you to the very people who tried to hold you back. It keeps you stuck in their orbit, living to prove them wrong, instead of living to build yourself up. If you focus on revenge, you're still letting them dictate your story. But if you focus on progress, if you focus on purpose, you step into a lane that's untouchable. You no longer need their validation, and you no longer need their recognition. Life humbles everybody eventually. The person who doubted your business idea, they'll see you thriving, employing people, changing lives, and they'll think back to when they laughed at you. The partner who didn't support your growth, they'll see you healthy, happy, successful, and wonder why they didn't appreciate it when they had it. The boss who overlooked your effort, they'll watch you build your own lane, maybe even have to compete with you, and realize they underestimated the wrong one. That's the beauty of regret. It arrives on its own. You don't have to deliver it. Think about someone like Oprah. Early in her career, a TV producer told her she wasn't fit for television. Imagine if she wasted her life trying to get back at that one person, trying to prove him wrong. Instead, she focused on building herself. She focused on progress, on purpose. Years later, that same person probably saw her owning entire networks, becoming one of the most influential women on earth. That regret wasn't something she forced. It came naturally. And the best part is, by then, she was too far ahead to even care. That's the mindset you need to have. Regret is their burden. You don't need to check up on it. You don't need to feed it. You don't need to remind them of what they missed out on. Life already does that job better than you ever could. Your job is to keep climbing, keep building, keep shining. Every step forward makes that regret heavier, but it makes your load lighter. Because you're not carrying bitterness, you're carrying blessings. I've seen people waste years chasing revenge. They finally get some success, and the first thing they do is run back to their doubters, trying to prove a point. But here's the problem. When the high of revenge fades, they realize they built everything around bitterness instead of purpose. They reach the top, but they don't feel fulfilled because their focus was never on growth. It was on proving somebody wrong. Don't fall into that trap. Let life do the proving. You focus on becoming. Regret is a powerful teacher, and it don't need your help to show up. Think about relationships. Someone who didn't value you when they had you will eventually feel the weight of your absence. Maybe they see you with someone new, glowing, happy, love the way you always deserved. That image will sting. That's regret working on its own. You don't have to rub it in. You don't have to post subliminal messages or throw shots. Just keep moving, because every ounce of joy you carry now is proof enough. Even in friendships, this applies. You might have been the one always showing up, always giving, always supporting, and they never gave it back. You finally walk away, stop explaining, stop showing up, and years later they realize they lost someone rare. They'll remember your loyalty, your energy, your presence, and feel that regret. And while they're weighed down by it, you're free, because you've been carrying progress, peace, and purpose the whole time. Regret hurts because it reminds people of opportunities they squandered. They realized they had a front row seat to greatness and didn't see it. They realized they had access to energy, love, or vision, and they wasted it. That's not your pain to carry. That's theirs. And the longer you keep building, the heavier that weight becomes for them. The beautiful part about trusting that regret will come naturally is it frees you. You don't have to chase validation. You don't have to waste time on revenge. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You just live. You just grow, you just keep stacking consistency until the life you're living speaks louder than any argument ever could. And when people see it, they'll feel the sting of regret without you having to lift a finger. So don't waste your time trying to make them see. Don't waste your peace plotting ways to hurt them back. Don't waste your purpose living to prove a point. Let life handle that. It always does. The same people who doubted you will circle back with fake smiles and old memories, trying to claim they always believe. When they do, smile. Not because you need their approval, but because you know the truth. You didn't rise because of them. You rose in spite of them. And that's the ultimate victory. Not revenge, not clapbacks, not petty celebrations. The real victory is living in peace, carrying purpose, walking in progress while they carry the weight of regret. Because regret is heavy, but it's not yours to bear. You're too busy building to look back. You're too focused on your future to be stuck in their past. And the life you create will always be the loudest "I told you so" without you ever saying a word.